Winston Churchill famously said, "To improve is to change, to be perfect is to change often." Twitter, Starbucks, Nintendo, Avon, Wrigley Gum, what do they all have in common? They were all open to change, and only their real business success came when they did. Google it. Welcome to episode 18 of I Have No Idea What I'm Doing. I'm Christian. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to all of you who reached out to us last week after episode 17. I was overwhelmed by the outpouring, encouraging words by so many of you. We received text messages, phone calls, free lunches, and emails offering kind words and help. We had multiple clients ask how they could fill in the gap, and that's an incredible feeling to know that so many of you watch the videos and care enough to see that we succeed. And to be honest, we don't know what we're going to do. And last Thursday, Ryan and I had one of my favorite work days that we've had in a while. We walked out of the office sometime around 9 a.m. and we went to our favorite coffee shop. And then from there, we walked down to Main Street and just hung out for a bit. And we talked life, and we talked shop, and we talked direction. And we got aforementioned text messages and phone calls of encouragement. One of the phone calls was an offer for lunch, so we accepted. And we walked to lunch, and we were fed tamales, and we were fed wisdom. And after lunch, we then walked to Sonic because why not? In all, we spent more time away from the office on Thursday than we did at the office, just trying to evaluate and wrap our brain around what might be next. And you know what? We didn't figure it out yet, but I'm okay with that. A few weeks ago, my mom sent me a link to a blog post written by a well-known blogger named Darren Rouse called How I'm Dealing with My Third Midlife Crisis. And as I read through it the first time, I couldn't help but nod in agreement. We've linked to it below if you want to check it out. I recommend it. What Darren goes on to point out is that now that he's in his mid-40s, he's feeling like he's coming into his third midlife crisis. And in movies, we depict a midlife crisis as a single event, but after reading, I tend to think a little more like him about how we probably get hit with a desire for drastic change more than once in our life. Like the rest of us, Darren's in a race. Life is busy, kids, mortgages, work, college funds. They're all in play, and when you're caught up in the middle of it, it's a little difficult to feel like you've always got it figured out or that you're actually doing something meaningful. And I believe we're all created for something meaningful, but from experience, I know it's not always easy to see or find where we bring meaning in our life to ourselves and more importantly to others. I can't count how many times over the years where I felt like I've had something more to offer to the world, but I honestly had no idea what that might be. I'd venture to guess you're probably in the same boat. Well, last week sprung a midlife work crisis on us, but I'm unusually at peace with it at the moment. And as far as I can tell, our spouses are as well, so that helps. I think I've mentioned it before, but Seth Godin's podcast, Akimbo, is a good listen most week. But last week's episode was one of the best in my opinion. Now, I don't have a commute, so I like Akimbo because it's fairly short. It's one of the few I can get through in one sitting, and I usually throw it on when I'm headed out to mow the lawn. Well, in last week's episode, Seth calls attention to Zappos, the shoe company, and their above and beyond customer service. And I've heard a number of different stories over the years about them, but one of the examples he highlighted I'd never heard before. It was a story of a lady who had just lost her mother and was going through the process of having to clean up the house after her mom had passed. And she found dozens of unopened Zappos shoe boxes and decided to call the company just to see what could be done. The deadline to return them had passed, but she didn't know what else to do. To her surprise, the customer service rep on the other end of the phone promised Zappos would take care of her, and they sent out a large box so she could load them up and return them and get a full refund, no matter the date of purchase. That in itself is a great gesture of customer service, but what made them different than most any other corporate customer service transaction was the fact that the next day after a call, a package arrived at the lady's house. The package was not an empty box to return shoes though. The package was a bouquet of flowers. Ahead of the funeral that day, from Zappos, showing the lady that they truly had concern for her well-being. Most companies have the ability to do what's right on the return side. Many companies won't. Where Zappos sets itself apart is that as a difference maker, they went far and beyond what they had to do. They shouldered the cost and the time it took to let her know that somebody cared for her and her family in this period of pain and loss. It was a real person on the other end of the phone, and they were encouraged to care by their own company. Impact makers. As I pointed out, we don't have it all figured out yet what we're going to do work-wise. But one of the things I'm hoping to be better about in our next work life going forward is that we're going to pick up the baton we've probably dropped about being impact makers. We might stick with what we know, or we might try something completely new. we might use this opportunity to focus our efforts a little more on some of the things we've been backburnering for a while. What I do know is that sitting here in my third midlife crisis is that I want to be an impact maker for others, just like all of you who have reached out this week. Your kind and encouraging words, your offers for help, you are impact makers to me. So how do we get there? Well, starting today, I'm going to try and end each day with a couple of questions. I'm going to ask, what charged me up today? What gave me energy? And I'm also going to ask, what did I do to give others energy or impact them? I feel like the crossroads of those two questions is one of the best places for me to figure out what I'm good at and what I ought to be doing as I aim towards my fourth midlife crisis. And now, how about you? Are you stuck in crisis mode right now? Are you not in love with what you're doing or what you're offering to others? Are you making an impact? If not, let's connect and blaze this path together. Until next time.